Hello, and welcome to the Schmidt List, the podcast for people dedicated to managing successful projects, developing impactful products, and building engaged teams. And now, here's your host, Kurt Schmidt.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This week, I interview Sarah Engstrom, CISO and IT Director of Productivity at CHS Inc. How do you find an ROI for security? And how do you balance the importance of security versus being innovative? We discuss these questions along with her experience during the security breach at Target and the most common security issues businesses face every single day and how to deal with them. And now, here's my conversation with Sarah. I hope you enjoy it. First of all, Sarah, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate you taking the time. I'd like to learn a little bit about the background you have and how you've landed in the current role you're at CHS.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Ever since I was a 4-year-old, I dreamed of being a CISO. No, I'm just kidding. I actually had 13 great years at Target and started out in the IT organization, actually in the help desk. So talk about kind of hands-on support with our end users. That's really good where I got my feet wet in supporting technology.
Moving up from the mailroom, basically.
Yeah, exactly. They called us the helpless desk, and so we had difficult days sometimes, but I learned a ton about the technology use at Target, what worked, what didn't, and the support teams kind of behind the scenes, and made just some great connections within the company. Knew that I wanted to grow into coordinating projects, and then that morphed into leading people. And I would say that in that 13 years, about halfway through, I moved into more of the information security organization there, and really just liked the change and the pace of change within the security field, and also just that gray, a lot of ambiguity, and sometimes that can be really nerve-wracking and sometimes really difficult to navigate through. But I just really liked the brain exercises that you were confronted with in the information security space. And obviously we had the worst case scenario happen at Target, and we all worked through the breach. And after that time, there were obviously a lot of organizational change, and a lot of people that I knew and had kind of enjoyed working with at Target were leaving and finding other opportunities outside of Target. So that was kind of the first time, I guess, in my career that I actually thought about not retiring from Target. So decided to depart and kind of spread my wings at another organization. And I had never heard of CHS, which is kind of interesting, but also I would say not abnormal to people even living in the Twin Cities. It's kind of been a hidden gem down in Inver Grove Heights. I think the first time it's kind of gotten the word out that the company exists was naming the St. Paul Saints Stadium. Yeah. And so I met David Black, the CIO there, and really appreciated what he was trying to drive, which was a lot of change within information technology at CHS. And he wanted a change agent that would also help on the security posture of the company. So I've been there for almost 2 years. And about halfway through my stint, I was given the role of leader of productivity as well. And so usually those two things are at odds together. And there are some companies that are starting to steer towards uniting those conversations. And so Microsoft is one of them. I went to a CISO security summit earlier this year, and the CISO who was coordinating that event from Microsoft actually had security and productivity teams up on stage sharing that natural tension, an obvious need to balance and find whatever that right tension point is for an organization. And as I've spent my time in the security realm at CHS, communication is key. I have done a lot in communication, awareness, and trying to create stories or tell stories that help our constituents at CHS, our employees, and some of them have been there for 30 plus years, start to understand this very complex topic of security and how to secure their information at home, on the road, and in the workplace. And so my boss, David, noticed that, I was communicating a lot. I was kind of turning into a brand representative really for the IT organization. And so with that, he thought that two teams that had a lot of role in productivity, technology adoption across our employee base would fit nicely as well as uniquely into my organization. So I now have what my help desk leader hates calling the help desk, really our service center, as well as our client services department, the department that, really provides the workstations, endpoints, desktops, collaboration tools, capabilities, conferencing capabilities, as well as, where people store stuff. And so we've been spending a lot of time really on where people should store information based on our data classification at CHS. So there's really nice complements within my three now united teams. And the help desk, the service center really, they field all of our calls from support perspective as well as, hey, I got a random phone call from this individual saying they were a CHS employee and I asked for information, they wouldn't provide it. So, reporting social engineering incidents. So it's been a really nice, just sort of unity of these teams that are obviously touching, all of our employees in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing role because traditionally, security is an afterthought. It's something that comes either during or after QA, and I'm seeing more and more organizations start to move it up front as part of the either planning process or the requirements process, and not waiting till after it's done. Did you find that, like you said, being a change agent with an organization like that? That was a challenge for you to start moving that conversation up front?
It is a challenge, as well as there are days where I come home and I just feel like I have won the lottery because I've made monumental change in a matter of a day.
Sure.
So the challenge that CHS has is we've got a diverse set of employees in that some are very ready to adopt new technology and to adopt change within that technology to know they'll be more secure. And then there are some that are just a little bit harder to reach. They're not, on a corporate campus. They're really an extension of our CHS operations in the country. And they, I think, just probably battle with the direction that's coming from the mothership and maybe not fully subscribing to the amount and maybe the pace of change that we've been trying to instrument at CHS. So what I try to do, and sometimes this is difficult to find the time, but just do outreach to, Joe Schmo out in one of our country operations divisions, just to understand, where he or she are coming from in terms of challenges using technology, challenges working with our IT organization, and that we are, here in the Midwest and they might be in Washington. And how do I connect with them on maybe a more deeper level than what my emails can really hit home for them? There's
a consensus. I mean, a lot of reasons why I've seen organizations in the past not have a focus on security is one, because of cost. And two, what I found even more prevalent than a budgetary discussion is just general awareness being the barrier for people taking security seriously and being able to understand the impact. Can you describe a conversation that you've had with a stakeholder about security and how it's about how you've spread awareness within your organization?
It's a complex topic, and my peer and I were laughing last week, and that security really never has a successful ROI. So whenever we're presenting projects, it's just money out of the bottom line.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you do not have to respond to the breach costs, you've kind of won the war against cyber terrorists, which is a difficult war.
Right.
But yeah, what I had mentioned too, just even outreach to some of our country operations units is that they have had business process that they've probably, leveraged for 20 plus years, which includes printing out, documents that potentially could have sensitive information on them. And so as a part of my outreach, I try to ask questions and just understand how they've been working and how that's been effective for them for a while. And then trying to provide the lens of a bad actor. So if I were someone who was trying to target CHS, who might I try to social engineer? What information would I want to potentially try to get access to? Mm-hmm. And then how we could implement just different safeguards and tweak that business process really to just be more efficient, effective, and secure. And I've had really great success where people have had aha moments in our conversations because I try to come at it from a let's partner perspective. And if there's anything that I can do to help serve up IT resources to benefit the automation behind that business process mm-hmm. in our efforts to be more secure, people tend to kind of rally around that and seem to be interested in changing just because they've even had, a one-to-one touch point versus, some type of hammer approach.
As you described before, you've had the, I'm going to say fortune to be part of a massive failure of security, right. Which a lot of people don't get that opportunity right. to handle or to be a part of something that impactful in an organization. I can imagine it sort of changes your perspective completely. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe not in any specifics, but a little bit about that transformation that went for you in your professional career on the backside of that?
Yeah, of course. I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of there were many great learnings that came out of a very unfortunate event. And I would say what really transpired for me is obviously doing what I can to not go through that experience again. And one thing that I have leveraged a lot is CHS has just a great culture. People are very dedicated to it. Our mission to serve farmer owners, I mean, you can't get much better than that right. in terms of really wanting to do the right thing. And so I've leveraged that in my communications and in my presentations really is that we have a reputation to maintain, and our reputation is gold, and how important that is to maintain. I worked for, a company that whenever I met people, they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you work at Target. I love shopping at Target." And unfortunately, we went through, a time frame where that was not the right. expression from right. people.
Right.
And it's so sad to see that shift. We all felt personally impacted by that. And so there's a very seriousness that I now have around that word breach. And I do not use it unless it needs to be used. Right. I'm very selective around that term. Mm-hmm. It's now kind of fully loaded for me. But there is this importance in telling people that, and it's kind of this new catchphrase, and maybe not so new in the security field. It's not if, it's when.
Right.
At some point in the life cycle of an organization, you're going to be impacted somehow by either an employee making an accident, an error, or sending information out, or somebody trying to obtain that information in malicious ways. So I try to paint the picture for people as I'm sharing my story and the story for what we need to do at CHS in terms of you guys do not want to experience this.
Right.
And what was really interesting for me, and I think what has just shifted the way I work, I'm kind of quote unquote always on. And after the breach, it was not, the expectation around when we worked shifted for a lot of people in the organization. We were working long hours, hard hours. We leveraged Skype and collaboration tools so that, we didn't have to be sitting at our desk at 10 p.m. at night. Mm-hmm.